Hello, everyone, and welcome to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. Now, if you are a farmer or a veg farmer, you will know that sowing season is upon us, whether you're trying to get clover in the ground or cabbage. It is time to think about all things seeds. And we are going to be talking to someone from a seed company in a little while. But first things first, we have Angela Clarke from the Irish Organic Association. Angela, thank you very much for joining us. You are going to tell us all about organic seeds and what people should know and when it's time to get a derogation as well if people can't find the organic seeds that they are looking for. But first of all, I'm a farmer and I'm looking for clover seed. Can I get organic clover seed out there? Are there companies selling it?
There are a large number of companies. I think there's approximately 8 or 10 companies selling organic seeds in the country at the moment. The majority of the seed for grass mixes does only contain a percentage of organic seed. There is one company who does supply a 100% organic mix that I'm aware of, but most others have only approximately 70 to 95% organic seeds in them. In a situation like that where you're looking to sow a mix, you do need to seek a derogation from the Irish Organic Association for the sowing of the non-organic portion of the seed.
So even if it's 90% organic, you still need to get a derogation for that 10% that wouldn't be organic. You still, or the seed, the mix itself.
You do indeed. So in that case, we have a derogation form which must be completed and is available from our website, irishodganicassociation.ie. And that is completed. In that, there is a section to say what the seed mix, if you give us the details of the seed mix, the name of the seed mix, we can generally find out what percentage of seed is non-organic in that and the particular seed types that are non-organic in it. And we can process the derogation based on that.
And it's not rocket science. I actually did this last year, and the IOA, they're very helpful because I kept messing up the form in terms of getting some clover seed under the scheme that was there. There was a support measure there where they're trying to encourage farmers to grow more clover because, of course, it is essentially adds protein value to your feeding stuff for your animals. So it's very important as well because it adds nitrogen into the soil if you're an organic farmer and you're not able to spread chemical fertilizer. So it is a good crop. But I had a difficulty last year in getting organic clover seed. Have things improved a little bit since then? Have more companies kind of copped on to the idea that there needs to be organic seed there?
There have, and there are more coming about every year. So they are. I would say at the moment, with the number of new applicants into the organic farming scheme, it would be advisable to contact the seed companies to order the seed in plenty of time.
Yeah.
So, and you would need to submit the derogation to us for approval before you buy the mix. But most of the companies would have no problem getting the seed for you. They do have a permanent stock of it, but as I say, with increased numbers, just err on the side of caution and order it in plenty of time.
Yeah, and I think hopefully one day we'll get to the stage where I look at seed companies in England and they have just a cornucopic supply of seeds and all different types and varieties, and hopefully one day we'll get there, but I'm not sure we're they're quite there yet.
Not quite yet.
No, one day. Vegetables then. People need to be wary. I need to be wary. I had my organic inspection today and I'd ordered what I thought were organic seeds, but then when the invoice came through, organic wasn't actually next to the title, but we had to do some rummaging around, and thankfully it all turned out that they were all organic. But people need to be wary when they're buying organic seeds, don't they?
You do, and like yourself there, you need to make sure that the invoice is clear that it is organic seed, and if it's not on it, keep a label from the packet. That's the most important thing. And it's the same process as with the grass seeds as well. If you were looking for a quantity of seed that the seed suppliers can't supply, or a variety that a customer requires that is not available organically, then you can get a derogation to get non-organic untreated seed. There is an organic seeds website which must be checked in all cases to verify if there is organic seed available, and that is www.organicxseeds.com. There's a link to that on our website, and it's also noted on the derogation forms. But if you check that, you will certainly be able to find if there is organic seeds of either the variety or the type that you're looking for there. And if they're not there, then it is definitely easier to get a derogation.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing to take away from this is that it is not rocket science to get a derogation, and you guys in the office are very friendly and helpful as well if people do need one.
Well, that's we try. Yes, exactly. Like you look up on organic seeds. If it's not available, fill in the derogation form and submit it to us. And if there is any issue, if there's any information missing, we will contact you and help you out with that. If it's a mix containing a percentage organic or non-organic, then you will be guaranteed to get the derogation there. So you will. There'll be no issue with that.
If there are any adventurous farmers who want to import seed, say even I know an organic farmer who has who's thinking of bringing in flax seed from France, is there an issue with importing seed from a different country? Do they need to make sure A, it's organic, and B, that they're allowed to do it?
Yeah, they certainly need to make sure it's organic. If it's coming from within Europe, there's no extra organic rules on importing it. You would just go by the standard importing rules that are there by the government. Importing from the UK is slightly more difficult in that, to the best of my knowledge, there's phytosanitary certs, etc., required, and that can take a little bit longer to get seed in. So that's why most people buy it through the merchants in Ireland who are importing it from the UK. But buying from across Europe shouldn't be any issue at all. As you say, once you have the organic cert, you're covered. Just one other thing, just to remind people to make sure you submit the form before you purchase the seed, and also make sure you record it all in your Irish Organic Association record book.
Would anyone not do that, Angela? Would they?
Oh, there are people. It's something, it's easy forgotten, like, but just make sure you do record it. We don't want to see any issues coming up with people not being able to verify the organic provenance of the seeds at inspection.
That's a very fair point. Thank you very much.
No problem. You're very welcome, Hannah.
Now, we were talking to Angela Clarke from the Irish Organic Association about any derogations that people might need and organic seed. And now we have Patrick Cashman, who is the Grass and Forage Development Manager with Goldcrop. Patrick, thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to jump straight in and talk about demand for organic seed. We know there's a lot more organic farmers out there, a lot of people converting. What's the demand for organic seed like?
Yeah, so the demand has been increasing, and I suppose there's two factors in that. Brexit obviously happened, where there's obviously a much bigger market for organic seed in the UK, and what probably had been happening for a number of years is that seed had been coming in from those suppliers that were probably at a scale for organic, and that's probably what had happened. Obviously, Brexit has put a lot of regulatory requirements between that border crossing, and it definitely has led to an increased demand from the Irish seed trade to supply that organic demand instead.
Are you able to meet the demand?
Yes. I suppose the problem with seed is that it's a perishable product, and very often our lead times are quite long. So until we are quite, I suppose, in the conventional market, we're quite well set up in understanding and being set up for the demand that's there. I suppose the challenge with organic is that we're very often by the time that the demand is there, sometimes it's too short a lead time to actually get seed. But we're learning and we are getting better, and we are investing more and having a better product range of what's in organic.
I imagine that if people want to start thinking about seeds and resowing and they're organic, they need to contact a seed company now. I know you're Goldcrop. I have to say, for the sake of argument, other seed companies are available, but they should probably contact yourselves or someone now if they're interested.
Yeah, so typically the way we work is that we're a wholesale, so we would work through a local merchant or so, whoever's local that they would trade with. The best thing we'd say is like to maybe contact them even, and they could maybe accumulate a feeling of the demand within their catchment, and they would talk to us at a wholesale level then.
And I guess, you and I were on a farm walk last year, and you were very informative, and it was a conventional dairy farmer. And look, we're all, I guess, familiar with certain seed varieties. When thinking of the Abergain and Aber 110, there's tons of them out there. But for organics, so what's the most common seed or the most popular seed?
Yeah, so in our house, we've got, obviously it's under conventional, but both in a cereal line and a grass and clover line, there is the Department of Agriculture administer a recommended list where varieties are evaluated on 5 sites for their suitability to the climate. Look, we can probably have an argument whether how relevant it is regarding how much chemical fertilizer is going on, but still, these varieties, they're tolerant to our weather. They're whether it is density or disease pressures, they've been tested here. So, ideally, you want to have varieties while it's organic, but you'd ideally like to have varieties that perform well within the climate. And it can have huge bearing in, say, a cereal line where you want a variety that's tested for proven lodging resistance, because if it lodges, it can be a nightmare to harvest. So, we would have varieties organically this year that would be the top varieties in our seed house, like Aston Energy, Aston Conqueror, and Oak Park. We have them available organically, and it allows us. What we're set up to do at the moment is put together mixtures that achieve 70% organic. So we have mixtures available that are pre-made up to meet that requirement.
And talking about performance, then, a lot of the trials that people read about or hear about, they do involve, I guess they involve initially spraying the land probably with Roundup and ploughing it up, and then re-sowing in a very kind of traditional, conventional method. Are you working on any trials that are 100% organic, or are you promoting any material that kind of showcases how people can reseed organically?
I suppose at the moment that, the market demand hasn't reached a scale where I suppose it would justify doing specific trials, but we can still take an awful lot of learning from, you take maybe particularly in a cereal line, they would do trials without fungicides to pressure them. So while it's not specifically designed for an organic scenario, but we can still see even disease resistance becomes more important when you don't have the backup of chemistry, or lodging resistance becomes even more important when you don't have the backup of growth regulator. So while the trials that are there aren't specifically in mind for organic, and organic farmer can still look at those trials through the lens of, look, I don't have the backup of chemistry, so I need to rely even more on variety traits.
And how have you been talking to any organic farmers? Have they said this seed works, this seed doesn't work?
And you would look again, you want, look in a grass seed line, you want varieties you can get grass within the EU, varieties can be traded freely, because the borders are open in the EU. There's nothing stopping varieties that are recommended for the south of Spain to be sold in Ireland. But we do get feedback from farmers that say seed that's coming off an Irish Reckon the list is outperforming seed that may have come in from mainland Europe. Again, you'll see it with cereals. You get the feedback that varieties that have better lodging resistance, because you get such biomass accumulation in Ireland, we have higher lodging pressure. So you get kind of feedback saying, oh, the wheat that you sold us would have stood, whereas maybe some other variety that we have a name we wouldn't have heard of, it went down in heavy rain a couple of weeks before harvest.
Say, for instance, are there any firm trends? I'm aware that I think a lot of organic tillage farmers, when they sow oats, it's usually the Husky variety. Am I right saying that?
Yeah, so we would Husky would be slightly older. We would have had Isabel in the last couple of years that would have looked like that. Very good lodging resistance, very good disease package. That would help. It makes a difference.
And in terms of research and development, then, and we know that there's a lot more organic farmers coming on stream, over 1,000. Is it going to justify a bit of research and development on your side in terms of looking at
I
maybe
suppose
100% organic trials?
it's kind of there's a lot of things happening in alignment that, look, obviously chemistry, the EU have made a very strong indication that chemistry needs to be reduced anyway. So a lot of the breeders are still looking for, you know, better disease resistance, better, like, so there's it's actually wider than an organic movement, that there's a drive to develop better varietal resistance to traits that maybe currently are being lent on chemistry to handle certain problems within.
Well, I guess fertilizer has gone so expensive as well is another thing. If people can grow it with little to no fertilizer, or use it to boost their fertility on their farm, or everyone's aware as well that the EU seems to be cracking down on the use of pesticides as well. So, like you said,
yeah, so like the you know, that's a lot of the work that breeders are working on anyway. Is, you know, whether it's you know, like to breed these, for all the diseases that are there, to breed better resistance, you know, because even in a conventional scenario, it helps them to reduce their reliance on agrochemicals.
And we had a discussion before we came on about a lot of the farmers that are coming on board in organics are sheep and beef farmers. Do sheep and beef farmers, do they reseed their land, Patrick? Do you think they're going to be good customers?
Yeah, so look, I suppose in a certain amount of beef and sheep, the stocking rate is quite low. So I suppose they would be, you know, they would be very suitable for organic because they have the lower feed requirement. But I suppose the challenge, one of the challenges with organic is that obviously the cost of production of cereals is slightly higher because you have slightly lower yield. So, you know, when farmers move to organic, they're going to see a lift in the cost of bought in concentrate. Like, so I think it probably changes the dynamic slightly, that maybe having, look, for conventional or not, we've seen really good feedback both on a trial basis and on a farm basis. Farmers making red clover silage or having more clover swards, where it's seen and proven to boost salmon performance and actually reduce the requirement on bought in concentrate. So I would think, look, reseeding is expensive, no doubt. But look, there's probably an opportunity there to have, you know, one or two really good paddocks for really good forage production that can maybe mitigate the cost of bought in concentrate.
Okay, so I remember when we were on the farm last year, we were discussing reseeding and the best way to go about it. If I'm an organic beef farmer here and I'm finishing cattle and I want to reseed with red clover, how do I go about the reseed? Do I do a full reseed? Do I stitch it in? And then what varieties would you recommend?
So typically, organic farmers are ploughing because, look, I suppose you don't have the tool of glyphosate to burn off the sod. So in order to get a clean seed bed, ploughing is usually is the predominant way you're ploughing. And it's also, like, from a weed control point of view, if that soil hasn't been ploughed in 10 years, you're gonna
Is there like a recommended plow depth, and what time of year should I be doing this?
You don't want to plow too deep, like 8-10 inches is fine. Time of the year, look for clover. Typically, it's the earlier part of the year, and I suppose there's an indication from the last budget that there will be a measure again this year, like there was last year, and it's looking like that measure, it'll need to be before the midsummer to be able to avail of the grant that you'll need to have sown before the middle of.
Well, realistically, you'd want to be thinking of sowing at least, I guess, May at the very latest, really.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, you look, especially if you're in a drier part of the country, you don't want to run into moisture deficits. You know, it's typically April, May. It probably depends on the system. Maybe if there's high spring demand from lambing or something, you know, they generally try to push it a bit. But look, yeah, the earlier the better always for clover. You're taking a lot of risk. Look, obviously you don't have a post-emergence spray option, so a number of grazings will help clean up a lot of the annual weeds that may or may not come into it. So like the earlier you go, the more options you have, even if the weather doesn't come right or if there's a bit of weed pressure. All those things help to you have time to get over a lot of challenges that may come in a particular field.
And do we spread watery slurry, and then how much watery slurry would we spread after the reseed?
So look, obviously anything that's developing and rooting has a P&K requirement. So look, doing a soil test will help. You'll get an idea of what's there. Certainly any farmyard manure or anything. Look, whether you go on with watery slurry after ploughing, sometimes you can do more harm than good going in with heavy machinery like tankers. Like the watery slurry could be quite good for stitching, but look, stitching can only work in I know we talked about stitching out in the farm walk, but you really need quite a clean sward for stitching. If there's a lot of creeping, very dense grasses, stitching generally not that not that successful. Like
yeah, and a lot of people seem to say stitching will work with white clover, but it won't work with red clover. But I guess individual farms and individual soil fertility tests will indicate how successful or how true that is as well.
Yeah, so you're a couple of factors in stitching. If you have look again, you need space for a plant to grow in. So if it's quite if it's quite dense, see stitching can work quite well after silage where it's quite open and it's taken off quite clean. Obviously, white clover has the ability to spread. So once you get a reasonable establishment of white clover, after 6 months, a stolon will develop, and that stolon will spread throughout the field and repropagate itself. Red clover, it has a taproot, so it doesn't have the ability to spread, and it doesn't have the ability to multiply and regenerate itself. So a small bit more challenging from a stitching point of view, because the number of plants that you get to strike day one is the maximum number of plants that you'll ever have. So you really need to get a really good establishment. Like there's multiple chances with white clover, because even if the strike is moderate, your management can compensate for that at a later date by letting plenty light down to it, maybe giving it a bit of watery slurry to put some P&K on, various things like that. There's a lot more management opportunities to propagate the quantity of white clover.
And it might be an easier one to start with to kind of dip your toe into the water than a full red clover reseed as well.
Yeah, sometimes look, the full reseed will always be more will always have bigger guarantees. It'll always be more successful because you don't have competition. You don't have competition from mature weeds and mature grasses. But the stitching, we've seen stitching on a number of farms, and I can't overstate the importance of having an openness there and not having dense creeping weed grasses, that can very quickly smother a seedling. So stitching, it always seems like the easy way or the simple way, but very, very often it cannot work out as quick as it will work out.
And treat it mean, essentially, clover after it's been done as well. Don't be afraid to graze it, is what you're saying, because the grass could
you have to keep light down into it. But look at that. Yeah, you have to give it that competitive advantage that you have to stop these mature plants from growing over it.
That is some very sound advice. Do you have any final words of wisdom for farmers out there, or do you have any contact details that you want to share with farmers before we finish up?
Yeah, so I'd look, I suppose important thing is to pick varieties that that actually have the agronomic traits they're looking for, whether it's persistence or density or or suitability to the climate. I meant to add that, look, the Irish Seed Trade and the Department of Agriculture have introduced higher voluntary standards within the Irish catchment. So it was a Goldcrop. We put a huge emphasis on having quality seed and reliable seed, and making sure that there's no anything foreign in there that that could be very difficult to get out again. So like the higher voluntary standards that have been introduced by the RC trade this year are putting a zero tolerance on sterile brome and blackgrass. So I suppose these seeds are varieties they're very common in mainland Europe, and for outside of Ireland they're less common in Ireland, and I suppose the objective is to keep it that way. Like, so I suppose I would put a huge emphasis on Irish produce seed for that reason. But look, there's more information on our website, goldcrop.ie. Organic mixtures, cutting and silage mixtures. There's more detailed information there on them.
Very good. And Patrick, thank you very much. And for everyone listening, obviously you've been listening to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. And we're going to have a couple more episodes on seeds and reseeding as well. So do stay tuned. And if you want more information on organics, go to www.irishorganicassociation.ie. But for now, thank you all very much for listening.